I understand end to end the complexities, what's involved, and how to break barriers before they even appear. And that's one of the kind of what I've been named for and called for my expertise, and putting a picture in 1,000 words. And so what I attempted to do was to facilitate today's conversation was to kind of put together a quick illustration so we could talk through. So, and my current role, I'm mostly focusing around kind of technology modernization and simplification. And what that means is really looking at opportunities across our firm and doing optimization on data synthesis, with the whole AI, now ML buzz that started last year. So all financial services firms want to get ahead of the curve and kind of run the race in a direction that wherever things are going, and it's market driven, obviously. So that's kind of where I fit in. And the reason why I'm so excited about the whole C-suite opportunity, because for enterprise level firms, which is where my background stems for almost 30 years, 25 to 30 years, this is an area where, the C-level suite executives, which I serve, and I'm a CBT, which is a chief business technologist. So I report into the CTO, where they don't understand the need of what they need, because, traditionally, even firms still today utilize, believe it or not, local SharePoint sites, Excel sheets, emailing Excel sheets of information. And this tool, this ThinkSheet platform, is really going to be a breakthrough, because they don't know what they don't know, and I guess they don't know, they haven't seen it, so they don't know they need it. It's sort of like the whole smartphone evolution that started, right? Nobody really thought that they really needed a smartphone, and they were going to become reliant on a smartphone. But here we are today. We cannot leave our house without the smartphone. So let me spend 10 minutes just talking about this slide, because there's a lot to talk about, and we can kind of do drill downs in the areas, focus areas that interest the audience. Let's point the arrow to the middle. Let's focus in the center, because everything really, in my mind, starts with the one pager and ends with the one pager. And just to describe the complexity of the whole CEO, C-level executive platform, in mid-sized firms, as there's only one CEO, there's one CEO, there's one CIO, there's one of each. And in a larger companies, there's many of each. And what happens is there are dedicated folks at the C-level executives. There's multiple CIOs in large financial services firms that I know, right? For each division, there's a CIO. For each division, there's a CFO. For each division, there's a CTO. They all roll up to only one CEO, which is good so far, right? One driver. And information's flowing continuously. And sometimes information is skipped. So sometimes decisions have to be made. Essentially, my point is that decisions are being made whether you're involved or not at the C-level executive suite, because things are moving so fast. And ThinkSheet will facilitate, through the collaborative platform that we have, right, to ensure that everybody doesn't miss anything and they can contribute. And kind of like when a light bulb idea comes to mind, they can actually use this as a vehicle to present information and to gain information. So I remember when I started on Wall Street, a C-level executive premise was to the CTO, let's say, or the CIO, we have a problem. They'll frame the problem statement and they'll say, for example, Bill, go and figure this out. And Bill would go and figure this out and come back when things were figured out. Fast forward to today, the CEO tells the CIO half the problem and says, we need an answer Monday, but we don't know the other half of the issue. But we need an answer Monday. Hence, this is why this is going to be effective in ensuring that all the critical thinking that happens and the decision making is actually presented in a fashion that it's iterative, it's platform that people can actually input and output. That's why the bi-directional kind of arrows, right? It's a continuous flow. And this is something that, in my mind, is going to be a disruptive technology entering the financial services or entering the corporate enterprise world. If we kind of move to the left, so let's talk about the left, starting with like number one, with the whole professional intelligence. And what I tried to put together was sort of a blueprint illustration that talks to high level, but not at a 30,000 foot level. This is more what I call a balcony view. You know, when somebody presents a 30,000 foot level slide, you know, some of the things are unknown. This is a balcony view. We can see in a balcony environment, we can see, feel, touch everything. So imagine the center stage as being kind of the orchestra, and everything around is what we need to support that one pager and that information flow across the executive suite. So we all start with data, because data, you know, is critical to everything. We can't make a decision without data. And some of the things that we're uncovering is that we actually have to go one level below data, which is datum. The datum is one piece of information, and data is plural. Data is, the definition of data is units of information, right? So we have to, we have to rethink. I guess my message here is we have to rethink the definition of data, because a video is a data, a light bulb in your head is a piece of datum. So we have to rethink that. And that's why the step one of this is challenging, and we know how to make it happen. Some of the challenges around this is, you know, what kind of data, what are the data that we need for pure decision making, because that's ultimately why we need the proper data. You know, data is challenging. We need reliable data. I put here entitled data. You know, for large firms, you know, not everyone's entitled to the same data. You can look at a web page and you and I can see different things. Well, that's sort of kind of the things that happen in a large corporation, because you and I don't see the same thing. So entitlement of data becomes a variable to solve, because it's a continuum, but we can figure that out. Moving onwards towards from the kind of the left to the right in the arc fashion is we get into the other kind of methodology framework here is around insights, right? So what is the data telling us, you know, with our behaviors, with our inputs, with our predictive modeling? What is it? And this is part of a daily workflow, right? We get into the recommendations engine where things are proposed and we can kind of tweak it. What is the data telling me? What is my expectation? What is the value? Yesterday, as Bill mentioned, right? What is the value? What is this data value to the user? Because again, the CTO and CFO may look at the same data, but they may have different interpretations. Hence, they'll put different weighings, right, to that piece of data. I put their user commitment kind of things, thinking ideas. You know, user commitment is key here to get the users engaged and involved, because this is not a part-time thing to do. This will become part of your ecosystem within a framework, within your kind of like every day coming in, turning on the office lights, you know, pulling up, adjusting your chair. This is kind of the direction that this will take. This will become part of your innate ecosystem. Ultimately, coming down to how things are automated, right? How much do you automate? There's refinement. And again, there's technology controls, as I mentioned, right? Who has access to what, who can see what. But going back to, I guess, who has access to data and what people can see to ensure that the information flows up and down and directionally, think of it as a train car. Let's say there's 10 train cars and one train car is the CEO car, and only the CEO and other members can can access that train car, but everybody else can't. We're all in the other cars, but we're still moving. The train's still moving in the right direction, right? We're still on the track. We're still moving in the right direction, if that's the right analogy. But because somebody can't get to that last train card, it doesn't mean that information stops. We just continue to move forward. And this is where we need support with our AI, automation, and intelligence. And then, sort of imagine like an arc flow where it's kind of cyclical, where, Bill talked about curation, and I have on the bottom there, data feeds data. Sometimes you need data to trigger another subset of data, and data feeds data, and that's key to understand how you cultivate data within your firm, your company, and it's the company's data. We're just facilitating the kind of the transformation and the decision making and the flow. So this is iterative. This is, as I mentioned, sort of like the blueprint to start the requirement process, the build process, the use case process, the kind of pilot process. We have everything in place as we've spent a lot of time and effort, as you know, on this.